Kirtananand Swami has come from New Vrindavan with a truckload of devotees. The devotees from New York are here with a large banner. New York ISKCON welcomes Srila Prabhupada. Most of the devotees wear heavy coats over their dhotis and saris and are chanting Hare Krishna. Some play drums and cymbals. A few babies and children are present. Waiting passengers can only watch, startled. Prabhupada's plane is late, and the devotees continue chanting, often leaping into the air with outstretched arms. They haven't seen Prabhupada in a long time, and they are waiting, expecting to see him at any moment. Oblivious of the properties of being in public, the devotees chant emotionally, building almost to uncontrolled ecstasy. The state police step in to tell the biggest devotee, Brahmananda, cool it. The chanting falls away to a murmur of Japa, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. The plane from London arrives. The devotees are unable to see passengers entering in the glassed-in immigration and customs area because the bottom 6 feet of the glass wall is painted black. Straining to see over the top, the devotees press forward, chanting, feverish, some almost hysterical. Suddenly, they see Prabhupada's raised hand with bead bag on the other side of the wall. They can see only his raised hand and bead bag. They go wild. Fearlessly with drums and kartalas, the kirtana explodes again. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Advaita is a tearfully smashing kartals together and chanting. Brahmananda jumping up and down, trying to glimpse into the custom rooms, is trying uncontrollably and yelling, Prabhupada, Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada, free of customs, suddenly appears before them. Kirtananand Swami, reserved until now, leaps around airport chairs and runs to him. Everyone is pushing and running, trying to be where Prabhupada is. Prabhupada's saffron robes are wrinkled from the long flight, and he wears a knit sweater. He holds his white plastic attached case in his left hand and again raises his right arm with forefinger and thumb extended from the bead bag. He smiles wonderfully, beaming to his children. Devotees cheer and cry, all glories to Prabhupada. As he walks toward a saffron-covered sofa in the airport lounge, the devotees move with him in ecstatic wave, pressing in close. He sits down. Paramananda from New Vrindavan comes forward with his infant sons, the first boy born in ISKCON, and holds him forward to Prabhupada for blessings. Prabhupada is smiling, and the devotees are completely, unabashedly blissful. Where is Hayagriva? Prabhupada asks. The question is repeated by the devotees, and big Hayagriva lurches through the crowd, grumbling and falling flat at Prabhupada's feet in obeisances. One by one, the leaders of various ISKCON centers come forward and place garland after garland around Prabhupada. Prabhupada looks beyond the walls of devotees at the newsmen with their cameras and at the baffled, curious, and disdainful onlookers. A bystander says, I think he must be some kind of politician. So Prabhupada begins speaking. The spiritual master is to be worshipped as God. But if he is thinking that he is God, then he is useless. My request is, please don't take Krishna consciousness as a sectarian religion. Prabhupada explains that Krishna consciousness is a great science culminating in pure love of God. Those boys and girls had never heard of Krishna before. Prabhupada continues. But now they have taken it up so naturally because it is natural. Prabhupada says that He is an old man, yet he is sure that even if he passes away, his students will continue the Krishna consciousness movement. The potency of this movement is such that it can awaken awareness of God within anyone's heart. After the lecture, Prabhupada stands and is escorted outside, where a limousine waits to drive him off through the newly fallen snow. Riding joyfully in the car with Prabhupada were Kirtananand Swami, Brahmanand, Satswarupa, and Purushottama. A professional chauffeur drove. Prabhupada talked of London. It was an old, aristocratic city, he said, and the temple was in an influential area near the British Museum. The location is what it is called, downtown. They passed a large billboard advertising a restaurant and lounge, Continental. On seeing the billboard, Prabhupada said, Chintamani, what is that? Oh no, Continental. Continental. The devotees looked at one another. Chintamani? Prabhupada had thought that the sign had read Chintamani, making the spiritual gems that make up the transcendental land of Krishna Loka. But Prabhupada himself was Chintamani, pure and innocent, coming to the cold, dirty city of Boston, yet always thinking of Krishna wherever he was. How fortunate to be with him. Satswarupa glanced at professional chauffeur. Drive carefully, he said. Prabhupada spoke softly from the back seat while the devotees in front peered back, barely able to see him in the darkness and completely awed by his friendly yet inconceivable presence. The other day, he said, I told George Harrison that if he thought his money belonged to him, that was Maya. At the summer tunnel, the limousine pulled up at an automatic toll booth. The driver threw a coin into the chute and the red light turned green. Prabhupada asked if sometimes people drove through without paying, and Brahmananda replied that an alarm would go off. They moved ahead into the summer tunnel, usually an airy, never nerve-wracking place, but not when riding with Prabhupada. I told George to give his money to Krishna, Prabhupada said. Not that he had to give it to Krishna by giving it to me necessarily, but that somehow or other he must spend all of his money for Krishna. But you are the only way to Krishna, Brahmananda said. Prabhupada laughed lightly. Yes, he admitted, at least in the West. This was the great privilege of being able to ride with Prabhupada, to hear him say little things or serious things, and to see his fathomless expression or his kind smiling. It was a rare opportunity. I am representing unadulterated teachings, Prabhupada continued. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, surrender to me, and I say, surrender to Krishna. It is very simple. So many Swamis come and present themselves as Krishna, and it is all spoiled. But I say, surrender to Krishna. I don't say anything new or adulterated. Krishna says, surrender to me, and I say, surrender to Krishna. Prabhupada asked Brahmananda if 50,000 copies of Back to Godhead magazine were being printed. Brahmananda answered, they were. Good, Prabhupada replied. Turning his attention to Satswarupa, Prabhupada asked how long the composing machine was working, and Satswarupa said that hundreds of pages were being composed each month. Prabhupada asked Kirtanand Swami about New Vrindavan. New Vrindavan would improve, Prabhupada said. The only thing wrong was that it got blocked up in the winter. Each devotee in the car felt completely satisfied by his brief exchange with Prabhupada, and they rode with him intoxicated in spiritual bliss. Most of the devotees had raced ahead to the temple on the Beacon Street and were waiting excitedly. The limousine pulled up, and again the devotees were unrestrained in their adoration of their spiritual master. Regally, Prabhupada walked up the walkway, onto the porch step, through the front door, and into the vestibule, where he gazed around at the purple walls and the pink and green doorways. Surrounded by chairs and loving books, he smiled. The second floor parlor, now the temple room, was filled with more than 150 disciples and guests, and they could see Prabhupada from rise into view as he come up the stairs. He still carried his wise attache case in his left hand and his bead bag in his right. And although he had just come out of the winter's night, he wore no coat, only cotton robes and a sweater. He appeared radiant. Prabhupada approached the altar. He seemed to notice everything. The small Radha Krishna deities enthroned beneath a red velvet canopy, the largest deities of Jagannath, Subhadra, and Balram on a raised shelf above the picture of Lord Chaitanya and his Sankirtan party. Even the brass arti paraphernalia brightly shining on the small table near the altar. Turning to his secretary and traveling companion, Purushottama, he asked, "What do you think, Purushottama? Isn't this very nice?" Crossing the room, Prabhupada sat on the red velvet Vyasasana. He spoke, and the audience was attentive. After praising the London Center, the deity worshipped there, the expertly made puris for Radha and Krishna, he turned towards the altar and said, "If you clean the deity's utensils, your heart will become cleansed." By polishing the deity's paraphernalia, he said, the devotees were cleaning their spiritual master's heart too. As he spoke, focusing simply and purely on devotion to the deity, the devotees suddenly realized the importance of this aspect of their Krishna consciousness. "Who has made these clothes?" Prabhupada asked, glancing at Radha and Krishna's little flounced dresses. "Saradhya," a few devotees called out. Prabhupada smiled. "Thank you very much." Then he threw back his head and laughed. "Is Saradhya still fighting with her husband?" The devotees and guests laughed, while Saradhya covered her face with her hands. "Don't fight with your husband," Prabhupada said. "He is a good boy. Anybody that comes to Krishna consciousness is good." He then asked to see the rest of the house. 100 devotees, straining to see and hear Prabhupada's responses, followed him as he went downstairs. Although the crowd surrounded him, he remained relaxed and unhurried. He entered the press room, a long hall directly beneath the temple room. A large old offset press, a paper cutter, a folder, and flats of paper stalks filled the room, which smelled like a print shop. Advaita, the press manager, bowed down in his green khakis before Prabhupada. He rose up smiling, and Prabhupada stepped forward and embraced him, putting his arm around Advaita's head. "Very good," he said. Standing before the printing press, Prabhupada folded his palms together and offered a prayer to his spiritual master. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramans Sri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Advaita asked Prabhupada to give the press a transcendental name. ISKCON Press, Prabhupada said matter-of-factly, as if it had already been named. "Keep all the machines very clean," Prabhupada said, "and they will last a long time. This is the heart of ISKCON." "You are the heart of ISKCON, Prabhupada," a devotee said. "And this is my heart," said Prabhupada. Leaving the main press room, Prabhupada toured the other press facilities. Squeezing in, ducking under, standing on tiptoe, the crowd of devotees followed him step by step. He peeked into a little cubby hole where a devotee was composing type. "The typesetters," he said, "should proceed very slowly at first, and in that way they would become expert." Turning to Advaita, he said, Everyone in India who speaks Hindi has a Gita Press publication. So everyone who speaks English should have an ISKCON Press publication. Compared to the most authors, Prabhupada's literary contribution was already substantial, but he wasn't just an author. His mission was to flood the world with literature glorifying Lord Krishna. Prabhupada's ISKCON was now 3 years old, yet his disciples were only beginning to execute his plans for printing and distributing transcendental literature. Prabhupada was an important step, the first step. Months ago, Prabhupada had written, "The press must work on continuously, and we shall produce immense volumes of literature. If the press goes on nicely, I shall be able to give you material for publishing a book every 2 months. We have got so much material for the Krishna consciousness movement." And just prior to coming to Boston, he had written, "Sankirtan and distributing back to Godhead and other literatures is the field work of this movement. Temple worship is secondary." Now, ISKCON was printing 50,000 copies of Back to Godhead per month, and Prabhupada hoped to increase the sales more and more. Standing in the crowded, chilly basement, surrounded by devotees, press machines, and transcendental literature, Prabhupada described how he wanted ISKCON Press to operate. He said that after dictating a tape, he would mail it to Boston to be transcribed. The transcription should take no more than 2 days. During the next 2 days, someone would edit the transcribed manuscript. Then another editor would take 2 days to edit the transcript a second time. A Sanskrit editor would add diacritical markings and the manuscript would be ready for composing. Prabhupada said he could produce 15 tapes, 300 manuscript pages every month. At the rate, ISKCON Press should produce a book every 2 months or 6 books in a year. Prabhupada wanted to print at least 60 books. Therefore, his press workers would have plenty to do for the next 10 years. If the devotees simply printed his books incessantly, he said, even if they had to work 24 hours a day in shifts, it would give him great delight. He was ready, if necessary, to drop all his activities except for publishing books. This was the special nectar the press devotees were hankering to hear. Printing books was Prabhupada's heart. It was the thing most dear to him. During Prabhupada's week in Boston, Purushottama continued as secretary and servant, out of duty. His difficulties in London had increased. Doubtful and morose, he came before Prabhupada 2 days before their departure. Purushottama said, or remembers, "I had decided to live in London. I just felt like there were different things I wanted to do, but I felt obligated to stay with him because he needed me there. It was my job to at least give him back to the States, get him back to the state. I felt that he needed someone to travel with him, and I just felt that I should complete that, have everything in order, so I couldn't say to myself that I had just quit when he needed me like that in a foreign country. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't speak against him or anything. I performed my duties, but in my attitude, I let him know I was really getting kind of distant the last few days. I didn't bow down to him. I would come in, but I just wouldn't bow down to him." He entered Prabhupada's room. He didn't bow down. He stood. He was too comfortable to sit. He was too uncomfortable to sit because of the gravity of what he would say. Prabhupada looked up from his desk. "Yes, Purushottama." Purushottama remembers, "I went in to see him. I knew I was going to leave, and it kind of made me sick to do it. Anyway, I told him I have a lot of questions about the movement, the moon, and everything. I just don't believe all of this. He was very conjugal about the whole thing. He took it nicely. He said to me, if you have questions, why don't you ask me? And I said, you yourself have said that we should only ask questions to somebody we feel we can believe or trust. He looked very hurt. He knew what I was saying. I felt like I really hurt him. I didn't mean it to be so defiant, but there I was. He said, I have noticed that you haven't been well lately. You have had some problems. I said, well, I haven't been trying to hide it. I guess I was trying to prepare him for what was coming. I wanted to leave that night. So I said, I want to leave. But he said to me, you have been with me so long, and now you are so anxious to go. You can't even stay a night. He said, why don't you stay at least till my plane leaves? That was 2 days later. I said, okay, I'll do that then. I was going to go back to New York. Actually, I didn't have the money for the ticket, and he gave me the money. He gave me the bus fare. I really appreciated that. I could have borrowed some money from someone else, but he said, well, you take it and you can pay me back later. And I did. I gave it back the next week. He was very gracious about the whole thing. Actually, I could see that he had a very special, loving way of looking at the world. I felt that sometimes I could see things in a loving way, like he did. And I realized that I got that viewpoint from him. You know, that little loving spirit. He had that, and I kind of caught some of that from him. And that's one of the things I always remember about him. And I know that through his movement, I came to believe in God. Before I met him, I didn't believe in God. After Prabhupada Purshottama left, Prabhupada spoke with Bhavanand about Purshottama's doubt concerning the moon landing and his consequent doubts of Krishna consciousness. I can understand he might not accept it because I said it, but how could he disbelieve the Vedic Shastras? Boston's weather was miserable. When the rain stopped, the snow fell. And when the snow stopped, the rain came again. Prabhupada tried taking a walk in the front yard, Bhavananda beside him with umbrella, watching cautiously to guard him from falling on the ice. But after a week of Boston's nasty December weather, Prabhupada's cold was getting worse. He would go to Los Angeles. Los Angeles, February 25, 1970. On the auspicious occasion of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's appearance day anniversary, the Los Angeles devotees received permission to enter their new temple on Wetseka Avenue. The rooms hadn't even been cleaned, and the large hall was bare. But the devotees brought in Prabhupada's Vyasasan from the old temple on La Cienega, and Prabhupada had them place on it a large picture of his spiritual master. Standing before his spiritual master, Prabhupada offered Aarti while some 50 disciples gathered around him, chanting Hare Krishna and dancing in the otherwise empty hall. After the Aarti, Prabhupada directed his disciples in offering flowers to the picture of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Then, still standing before the Vyasasana, he said he had nothing to offer to his spiritual master on this day except his own disciples. He then read aloud the names of all his disciples. Taking his seat on a low Vyasasana beside the large Vyasasana of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Prabhupada gave a short history of his Guru Maharaj, son of Bhaktivinoda Thakur and powerful Acharya of the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. As Prabhupada recalled his first meeting with his spiritual master, he told how Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had told him to reach Krishna teach Krishna consciousness to the English-speaking world. This large new temple, Prabhupada said, had been provided by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati as a gift for the devotees to use in Krishna's service. They should not become attached to the opulence, Prabhupada said, but they should use this wonderful place for preaching. As he spoke, he wept. Now bring them prasadam, Prabhupada called, and the feast began. While devotees sat on the floor in rows, Prabhupada from his Vyasasana directed the servants, having them bring another samosa to one devotee, more chutney to another, and so on. He watched over all of them, encouraging them to take Krishna's prasadam. That afternoon, Prabhupada toured the buildings. In addition to the main hall, which he would have the devotees convert into a temple, he saw the equally large lecture hall. These rooms, plus a three-room apartment, ample separate quarters for male and female devotees, a parking lot, and a front lawn, made this the finest physical facility in all of ISKCON. We don't require such a nice place for ourselves, Prabhupada told the temple president Garg Muni. We are prepared to live anywhere, but such a nice place will give us the opportunity to invite gentlemen to come and learn about this Krishna consciousness. The cost of the building had been 225,000 US dollar with a $50,000 down payment. Prabhupada had more than $10,000 in his book fund, but that was exclusively for printing books. So although he usually didn't like to deal personally in such negotiations, he had made an exception in this case and had asked the other temples to donate to the new world headquarters in Los Angeles. He had even mailed snapshots of the building to various temple presidents around the world. Thus, he had collected the down payment. And on Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's appearance day, ISKCON became the legal owner. This was the only temple ISKCON actually owned. All the other buildings were leased or rented. And Prabhupada wanted to design everything himself. Hiring professionals would be too expensive. But Prabhupada had plenty of disciples eager to do the renovation. Karan Dara knew little carpentry, plumbing, and general construction, and he could learn more by experience. Bhavananda had been a professional designer, and he was filled with Prabhupada's enthusiasm to transfer the plain church into a dazzling palace for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. First, you make my apartment, Prabhupada told Bhavananda. Let me move in, and then we will work on the temple room. Bhavananda remembers. We picked out a part of the Los Angeles temple for the Prabhupada's quarters, and Karandar built a bathroom. When Prabhupada came up to the rooms, he said, "This will be my sitting room, this will be my bathroom." And when he came to third room with a skylight, he said, "This will be my library." Prabhupada had told me once in Boston that as a child, he had lived in a palace with blue walls, red marble floors, and orange and gold trim, the Maulik's house in Calcutta. So we painted the walls of his sitting room blue, and I put in a white tile floor. The drapes were burnt orange, satin with gold cords and gold fringe. Prabhupada liked this color scheme very much. In the bedroom, I asked Prabhupada where he wanted his bed, and he said, "Put the bed in the middle of the room." We had put down a rug, and Prabhupada said, "Now you should get sheets and cover the rug with them." In India, they have rugs like this, nice rugs, and they cover them with sheets. And on special days, they take the sheets off. Otherwise, they would become ruined. So I went out and bought sheets. Prabhupada was in his sitting room when I came in and started putting the sheet over the rug in the bedroom. Prabhupada came in and said, "Yes, this is very nice." Again, I have introduced something new. This is something new for of you, all of you. Sheets on rugs. Then he told me, now make sure there are no wrinkles in the sheet. I was on my hands and knees on the rug, and Prabhupada also got down on his hands and knees right next to me. We were both pressing out the wrinkles from the sheet. And when we got to the end, Prabhupada folded the sheet under the rug. He was very happy there because it was our own place. We had never had our own place before. In the temple room, Prabhupada showed Karandara where to build the three altars. He indicated the measurements and instructed that before each altar should be a pair of doors and over them the symbols of Vishnu. A conch shell over the altar for Guru and Gauranga, a wheel and club over Radha and Krishna's altar in the center, and a lotus over Lord Jagannath. The spiritual master's Vyasasana was to go at the opposite end of the temple, facing Radha and Krishna. The walls should be yellow, which Prabhupada said was in the mode of goodness. The ceiling should be covered with a canopy, and there should be chandeliers. Once the altars were completed, Prabhupada wanted to bring the deities, even though much of the renovation was yet unfinished. After constructing an umbrella-covered cart and decorating it with flowers, the devotees brought the deities in procession from the old temple on Lord Sienaga Boulevard to their new home. Bhavananda remembers the first time he came into the temple room after his morning walk, he went to the Guru Gauranga altar and paid his obeisances. We all paid our obeisances. Then he stood up and he went to Radha and Krishna and then paid obeisances. Then to Jagannath, and we all followed. Then we walked back and he sat on his Vyasasana and he told us, now you line up facing each other from the Vyasasana to Radha and Krishna. Face each other. This way, that way, one way you look is Guru and the other way God. And then back and forth that way. Always leave these aisle, he said, so I can see. The deity was the king, Prabhupada said, and all the temple residents were his personal servants. The temple, therefore, should be like a palace. An elaborate temple was important for preaching, Prabhupada explained, because most people, especially Westerners, were not inclined to undergo any austerities for obtaining spiritual life. There was an Indian saying, no one listens to a poor man. Where the devotees to advertise classes on Bhakti Yoga in such and such empty field under a certain tree, Prabhupada said, no one would come. But a clean, beautiful building with chandelier and comfortable rooms would attract many people to visit and become purified. The temple was also for those who wanted to live there as Krishna conscious devotees. Devotees, Prabhupada said, should be willing to live and sleep anywhere. But as the loving, protecting father of all his disciples, Prabhupada took great care to establish a large temple and an adequate dormitory facility. He was making a home for his family. To see that his spiritual children had a place to live and practice their devotional service was just another aspect of his mission. A special feature of the new temple was Srila Prabhupada's garden. The devotees had excavated a large patch of concrete behind the temple, filled it with earth, surrounded it with a cinder block wall, and planted a lawn with flower gardens all around. Karandara remembers, I had dug some beds along the inside perimeter and planted a plant here and plant there. But Prabhupada said, no, plant something everywhere. Everywhere there should be something growing. Everywhere there is a place you plant something. Let there be growing everywhere. He wanted it overgrown like a jungle, a tropical area where plants just grow luxuriantly everywhere. Srila Prabhupada always enjoyed sitting in the garden in the evening with the fresh, cool evening air and fragrance of the flowers. The topics of conversation in the garden were as varied as Srimad Bhagavatam. All different subjects. Sometimes there would be lively conversation with guests or devotees, and sometimes Prabhupada would spend the entire time just chanting with little conversation. Sometimes Prabhupada just have somebody read from the Krishna book. Prabhupada said that his mother maintained a garden on the roof of their house when he was young, and that he would go up there in the evenings and play. He remembered that. He always remembered what he liked to do as a child. You would hear him reminisce with pleasure about it. Many times he would comment, "My mother maintained a garden on the roof of our residence, and as a child, I would go there in the evening and play. Now I also have such a nice place to come." So Mataji, now 6:52, we'll stop here. Hello. Okay, so I think we'll stop here. Hare Krishna, everyone. वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितनाम पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Dhananjay. Thank
Hare
you
Krishna.
for your kind association. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Hare Krishna